Like, imagine a job where instead of getting, cost of living raises, health insurance, other benefits like retirement matching and whatever, how about instead of that, you have to pay your own taxes, pay your own gas, depreciation, maintenance, you got to keep track of all of that, and the apps are going to be lowering their base pay year over year over year. Hey guys, no ride along today. Instead, I just wanted to talk about full-time gig work and why I have transitioned out of that into part-time. So I'm going to talk about my story for a little bit, but then we'll jump into some of the voices in the gig work space who have already expressed their thoughts on it. So let's jump into it. So like most, I actually started part-time with Uber Eats back in January of 2022. And then pretty quickly, I actually transitioned to full-time. I left that job and I just went all in on the apps. Pretty quickly, I was adding app after app after app, where I'm currently actually, running about 7. So, yeah, I did that for 2 years. 2 years of full-time gig work, and I'm back doing part-time. So here's a couple of reasons why. Number one, I turned 26. I am dropping off of my parents' insurance at the end of this year, and I'm like, yeah, there's whatever, like healthcare.gov, whatever things I could do, but I would rather do something through an employer, get higher quality health insurance. So that was kind of the catalyst of a lot of this. Turning 26 is, a lot of changes, but I also got married. So, looking for a little bit more consistent income. I think it's pretty obvious that these apps are not steady income for sure. We always have the summer slowdown, but maybe you don't hear about the winter slump after January. Really, the first week of January, it slows down quite a bit and, picks up a little bit in the spring, but it's not great. And then the fall is okay, but really your best earning months for food delivery is going to be November and December. So you got to plan for the ups and downs, and that's not always the best situation for everyone. Especially in my case, being married, I wanted to be able to have some more structure to this, and as much as I treated this like a really serious job, like my own business, it's nice to have the security of a W-2. Now, another reason is going to be flexibility. Number 3 here is, everyone says these apps are for flexibility. It's great if you're, a single parent, have kids, or you just have a hectic schedule. Maybe you're trying to pay off debt and you just want an extra side thing, whatever. Problem is, you're kind of tied to the busy times. If you're not getting out there during the lunch rush or during the dinner rush, you're not going to be really making what you need to make if you're trying to do this full time. So I got tired of, not being able to have my evenings. My wife gets off work. Oh, well, I'm working till 8. So less time there, not ideal. Weekends, can't hang out with friends quite as much because Saturday, Sunday, Friday nights, the time when everybody else is out, I can't really hang, because if I'm missing out on those critical busy hours, then I'm going to be working 10, 12-hour days the rest of the time just to be able to make up for that. And that's not working anymore. Number 4, I think, is just because these apps are pretty much a dead-end job. There's not a lot of growth. I feel like the lifetime of a gig worker is food delivery or rideshare, whatever you jump into first. But then you realize, this isn't, quite pulling it. So maybe you get into some grocery delivery. That's paying more sometimes. We've seen the downfall of the Spark recently, but then you're like, well, I don't really like doing that anymore. Pay's going down. Maybe you'll get into catering and you'll be able to pull some good money with that. Okay, yeah, but that's not so, consistent either. You're not getting too many of those, depending on your market, of course. And honestly, like, catering used to be the pinnacle of like delivery. That was like, if you got that, you could ride for the longest time. Even that's going downhill. I mean, we're probably going to be entering a recession. Some people believe we've been in a secret recession, whatever, for years already. So the reality is that these apps just are not going to be paying more. They're only going to be paying less, or you're going to be working more to get the same. And obviously that's not going to cut it. Like, imagine a job where instead of getting, cost of living raises, health insurance, other benefits like retirement matching and whatever, how about instead of that, you have to pay your own taxes, pay your own gas, depreciation, maintenance, you got to keep track of all of that, and the apps are going to be lowering their base pay year over year over year. That doesn't sound great, right? So that's, another reason why I wouldn't really recommend doing this full time. And actually, another reason why I'm switching to part-time is because of that sentence right there. Like, I have heard that way too many times. The amount of people that say, oh, I do this full time, blah, 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 like I do great, whatever, but I don't recommend it, is way too high. And I'm guilty of it too. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, I've done this for 2 years, whatever. It was what it was, but I don't recommend it. Like, I'm tired of being that person. I'm tired of being a hypocrite. There's this idea that these apps are supposed to be a stepping stone. It's a great option if you're like, you got laid off and you just gotta get by for a little bit, or you're trying to pay down debt, or, you're using it for extra income while you're building a business or whatever it is on the side. But then it's like, what comes next? And I think that's, where it kind of becomes a little bit of a trap, and why people say that, but they don't recommend it, but they keep doing it, is because you get sucked into the fast money. And, you're getting paid every day, depending on your setup, or every week. And, it's addicting to see the number go up, see how much you can make. But like, are you paying attention to your costs? Are you, like, all of that? Are you paying attention to how much time you're sinking into it? And really, are you paying attention to the opportunity cost? Because if you're sinking, some people I know, 60, 70, 80 hours on these apps, like, what if they just did 40 and then spent that extra 40, building something, getting educated, I don't know, bettering their situation in a way that isn't going to leave them with car debt or ginormous car repairs, tax debt. I've seen people, they don't pay it, when they're supposed to, and they get stuck at the end of the year. It's like, I'm done dealing with all that. I've dealt with it really well. I treat this like a business, but I feel like a lot of people don't. And again, if you are asking yourself, or me, if you should get into full-time, again, the recommendation is no. I'm not saying you can't, obviously, do what you want. I'm not saying you wouldn't even be able to sustain yourself, although I think the future is pretty bleak for it. I just think you're better off at this point compared to 5 years ago. Like, this would have been great. I absolutely would have said, go all in, quit your job. A lot of people did that and made more, but I think you're going to make less these days. And I think you're going to miss out on a lot of things that you could have done, even literally just compared to like Panda Express. Again, I was looking at that thing the other day. They were hiring for like $19 an hour. I wasn't even making that gross here. Net? Whatever the higher one is. I was making like $15 an hour that day, and they were hiring for 19. And then I still had to pay my own taxes, gas, depreciation, like everything. So it's just a lot. And please take that into consideration. Crunch your numbers before you make a decision like that, and see what you might be missing out on instead. So those are pretty much my reasonings for why I'm switching back to part-time, and hopefully I can get to a spot, because right now I still rely on them. I still rely on these apps for income, but I want to get to a point where I can just use these for fun side cash, or like, I don't know, let's make $1,000 this month to like invest and do fun stuff like that, or go on a vacation, instead of like, oh, I need this because I'm trying to get approved for a house kind of thing. All right, so now let's talk about some of the gig tubers. Obviously, that's my opinion, that's my market. But what I think really solidifies my point is the fact that a lot of these content creators are quitting as well. You know, it's not just one area. So many dashers and gig workers are feeling the squeeze. Almost all the apps are lowering the base pay or getting oversaturated, whether it's a migrant crisis or just, you know, cost of living going up and inflation and whatever, making orders go down, like whatever you want to say. It's not getting better, it's getting worse. And I think the gig space suffers a little bit from like short-sightedness. Okay, so real quick, I'm editing this and I'm realizing that based on what I'm about to say in the next clip, what I just said might sound a little hypocritical. So I just want to clarify that I'm not talking about the short-term volatility of the apps, you know, like the summer slowdown or whatever. I don't think people are getting out of gig work or reducing their time in gig work because of that. I really think it's a long-term trend that it's just getting worse. More hours, less pay. The apps are asking us to do more and more, drive farther. So I think over the long term, that's going to continue to be the trend. These apps, most of them still have not made a profit, and they're going to have to push profitability somehow, and that's probably going to be coming in terms of our pay or the, you know, cost of the goods that they're providing or services that they're providing, which means there's going to be less people doing it because it's more expensive. So that doesn't mean it's not going to get better in the short term. Like, I think in December, November, you know, coming fall, whatever, it's definitely going to get better. You know, summer slowdown is infamous, and I feel like a lot of people lose sight of that. So if you're quitting because of that, you know, you just got to stick it out for that. That's the highs and lows of gig work. You know, you make $30 an hour someday, you make $15 an hour some days, and that's just kind of how it goes. You know, you look for that yearly average. We're not talking about weekly averages or even monthly averages. I'm looking for that yearly average if you're going to be in gig work for full time. So anyways, hope that explains it. Let's get back to the video. Where, you know, they see the next shift that just happened and it's like recency bias, right? You know, they see that, oh, well, I had a terrible day now, so that means everything's garbage. It's like literally you scroll down on their page like 2 days ago and it's like, oh, they made $30 an hour. And then, oh, for the past week they've been doing that, but they had one bad day, so now, you know, the apps are garbage. And I think, you know, whatever, that's content, like clickbait, whatever, you do you. But I just think on a broad scale, if you can see trends among these, you know, YouTubers and whatever, that like it's not great. And so as an example of that specifically, there was some beef between a couple of YouTubers, and hey, I'll name drop, like Pedro DoorDash Santiago, Pedro Mr. Bet on You Santiago now, and Aaron's Gig, which I think used to be Gig Phoenix. You know, Aaron had some pretty big beef with Pedro, saying how, you know, he completely disagrees with him, that Pedro thought these apps were a stepping stone and shouldn't be your full-time only source of income type of thing. And he was pretty adamant about that, and Aaron really didn't like that. And understandably, like, you know, different people have different paths of life, and it works for some people, and of course there's going to be pockets in different areas of the country where it's still great, and I would agree with that still today. But, you know, then like a couple months ago, honestly, I think it was some, you know, somewhere at the beginning of this year, there was a live stream, and Aaron admitted, like, yeah, you know, it's gotten really bad, and I think he agreed with Pedro. So like, from adamant that this is a great option for full-time sole source of income to, yeah, it's bad. Within like a year, you know, if you look at his income back, he's got all those videos still up there where he was making like $2,300, $2,400 a week, and today he's making like, you know, $1,300, maybe $1,700, whatever. But it's not as good. And then another example of that is actually my good friend Welty. You know, he, back in the day, he had his path to $1 million. That was his, basically that was his YouTube channel at first. And he goes, you know, gig work, I'm all in, no plan B, like this is the vehicle that's going to get me there. It allows me the flexibility to do that and build his YouTube channel. Obviously, it's great. But again, a couple months ago, he's out here posting stuff like, yeah, not doing gig work. Not that he's not doing it anymore, but he has gone all in now on casino dealing. He's at a school for that, where he's going to learn how to deal blackjack and whatever else, and that because the apps have been garbage for him. And like, obviously, I don't blame him for that. No shade to any of these people, by the way. I'm that person. I'll put their in the description. Like, go check them out. They're all cool people. But yeah, like, so that's a long-term trend. Just 2 years ago to now. And then you imagine, like, you know, when the peak was in the pandemic times, like, it's not like that anymore. People were leaving their jobs and making more than they were making then. That's not likely anymore. So that's that. But anyway, I think that's gonna about do it for me. So, I mean, I could sit here and rant and rave and give you reasons why you should or shouldn't do things. But at this point, I'm gonna turn it over to you. So definitely let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Are you gonna do this full time? Are you scaling back to do part-time like me? Are you getting out of it? Let me know, I'm curious. But if you got any value out of this, definitely drop a like and subscribe for more. And I'll see you in the next one.